back as anyone can remember, mankind has always had their eyes set skyward. The majesty of Cloudkin soaring among the firmament, defying all primordial beliefs, captivated and enchanted those who were bound to the terrestrial plane. With various sizes and shapes, mankind wondered if one day they too could ascend to the heavens. And with time, determination, and dreams, they did just that. With each calamity, the advent of flight was forgotten and rediscovered, with the origins of those past eras in the skies lost to time, for the most part. And so, today we will first address the rediscovery of flight, how it shaped the world we know it today, and how, in Aldenard, it wasn't man who first rediscovered it, but the Ixali. My name is Juliet, and this is the Eorzean Historian. Somewhere around the year 1020 of the Sixth Astral Era, the Ixali, who had dominated the Black Shroud since time immemorial, incurred the wrath of the elementals by overpopulating the woods and creating new clearings without their permission. As a result of this crime, the Ixali were exiled from the Shroud, and their departure came with a curse. Somehow, the elementals had stripped the Ixali of their ability to fly. As generations came and went in the unforgiving mountains of Zelphatal, the Ixali lost more and more of their feathers once born to their arms, until finally nothing was left but feathered nubs, and an uncontrollable hunger to return to the heavens above. Hundreds of years attempting to regain their mastery of flight ended in failure, and it wasn't until circa 1360 that a lowly windriser in the laborer caste happened to strike a deposit of buoyant gas while mining. This gas turned out to be a vaporized form of ceruleum, which could be contained within pouches and float. With enough of these balloons strapped to whatever they wished, they found they could easily facilitate the transportation of cargo unlike ever before. Over the next 60 years, the Ixali experimented heavily with this discovery, and the result was the ability to fashion together a large bladder that could carry a woven basket filled with occupants, which was completed circa 1420. With its maiden voyage, the wingless Ixali once more took flight after hundreds of years as earthbound prisoners, and the first dirigible had cemented itself in the annals of the Sixth Astral Era. These early aircrafts, however, were at the mercy of the winds, and notoriously difficult to control. By 1440, the Ixali had learned enough to devise a means to create rudimentary steering, though often required planning excursions around specific seasons when the winds were favorable. These masters of the skies went uncontested for a good 35 years, able to use their newly crafted flying machines to terrorize the Twelpswood by stealing lumber, among other things. But in 1475, one of these Ixali balloons was carrying poachers aboard and suffered some kind of malfunction that forced an emergency landing in the Black Shroud. The vessel was quickly discovered by the Gridanians and seized. After only 1 year, a merchant adventurer named Tadanora purchased the wreck, and using his knowledge of ceruleum gases, manufactured replica balloons. And from that single moment, the aircraft technology held so vitally to the Ixali spread like pollen in the wind. planting its seeds in the hearts and imaginations of Eorzeans all throughout the realm. At first, the technology was restricted to simple levitation for things such as chocobo carts, the forerunners to modern carriages. Outside of the Ixali, it wasn't until the year 1522, 47 years after the wreckage discovery, that fully fledged aircraft would be seen in the skies. This was largely thanks to Tadanora, who used his fortunes gained from his earlier balloon cart models to craft a fully functional dirigible of his own that could be mass-produced. 9 years later, in 1531, he used his fortunes to found Highwind Skyways, Eorzea's first privately owned air travel company, though the initial years were mostly leisurely flights instead of true conveyance of people or cargo. It was nonetheless a massive step towards what would become Eorzea's premier airship company. As for the Ixali, it wasn't until 1562, when they summoned their goddess Garuda, that they came to be in possession of artifacts known as airstones. These crystals were possessed of the unique properties of their patron deity, and the Ixali fixed these stones to their aircraft, which gained them mastery over thrust and steering. They used this newfound power to force their way into Kurthus, and in that same year, established their base, known as Natalan. It was in that very same year of 1562 that Cid Garlean defected from Garlemald following the infamous Basra incident. When he arrived in Eorzea with his trusted friends Biggs and Wedge, he did so on his own private airship, the Enterprise, an act which would revolutionize air travel in Eorzea. For you see, Cid's vessel was quite unique to its Garlean counterparts. While Garlean airships required massive amounts of ore that cannot be found outside of Ilsabard, and also required highly sophisticated factories to produce such engineering marvels, Cid's ship was capable of being constructed using far more common materials, like ones you could find in Eorzea. Determined to advance Eorzean technology to combat the growing threat of the Empire, Cid founded his own company called Garlean Ironworks, and in the year 1563, they partnered with Highwind Skyways to bring a much-needed overhaul of Eorzean airship design. This collaboration resulted in the construction of a new airship type, based on the Enterprise. It was known as the Bronco-type airship, and is what is largely in use today as a ferry between Eorzean city-states. However, tragedy struck 6 years later, when an Imperial dreadnought belonging to the 14th Legion opened fire on a Highwind Skyways passenger vessel, killing all on board. And so, it was decided in 1570 that all transportation by airship would be closed to civilians, barring some extremely special cases. Thankfully, this restriction was partially lifted in the wake of the Seventh Emerald Calamity, and regular airship travel did resume, though you still require permission from the city-state. While Aldenard's development of flight was attributed to the Ixali in the Sixth Astral Era, Ilsabard's evolutions came from the Garleans. At the beginning of the 16th century of the Sixth Era, then Legatus Solus Galvus ushered in a Magitech revolution using the continent's abundant stores of ceruleum. This revolution saw massive and rapid advancements in machines, with aircraft being chief among them. Around the year 1517, Republic engineers solidified a design that utilized ceruleum-filled gas sacks for lift and ceruleum-powered mechanical wings for propulsion. These incredible crafts were dubbed airships and were instrumental in territorial expansion. This design was further advanced when techniques were acquired in annexed lands that allowed for trapping of wind-aspected ether in special cloths. This led to ether-infused wings, which in turn gave rise to menacing steel-clad crafts that struck fear in the hearts of those who looked above for salvation. This technology advanced so far that Garlemald is credited with designing the largest airship to have ever been built in the Sixth Astral Era, known as the Agrius. This colossal fortress was entrusted to the 14th Legion for their campaign into Eorzea, but its time in service was cut short when it deigned to fly over the crystal waters of Silvertear Lake. It was from this basin that the Elder Worm Midgardsormr rose. An incredible battle between dragons and airships was waged, known today as the Battle of Silvertear Skies. Ultimately, the Elder Worm ensnared the Agrius and drove it into the water, where the ceruleum engines exploded with a blinding light, killing the father of dragons and forever altering the landscape of Mordona. This next section does contain minor spoilers for the final Heavensward location, as well as the Void Ark. If you would like to skip this section, please meet me in the finale. Harking back to the times of Eld, we know of a few instances that air travel had been successfully manned by previous eras. Allegan notes, located on the research station in Az's Law, recount how Helix, a Third Era docking station, was designed to house a type of airship known as a Ragnarok-class vessel. While many more docking rings were said to have been here, it seems time had all but eradicated them. But perhaps the most famous example of aircraft from the Third Astral Era is the lesser moon Dalamud itself. While not an airship by any means, it was designed as a satellite, which means it required no small amount of thrust, flight, and calculations to break through the firmament and cement its place among the stars. And as far as we know, this was the first instance of stellar flight in Hydaelyn's history. And of course, we can't forget one of the most tragic airships to ever grace the skies. I speak, of course, of the floating ghost ship known as the Void Ark. This looming vessel was constructed by the Fifth Era city of Mach in an effort to soar above the calamity of water and save its condemned citizens. Powered by imprisoned void scent, this technological marvel was likely the pinnacle of airship technology in the Fifth Era. However, sometime during its maiden voyage, as the world beneath it was swallowed whole, the void scent contained within broke free of their chains and proceeded to wipe out the ship's entire inhabitants, leaving it a floating tomb. While we have covered a great deal of the history of flight and the airships involved, this is by no means an all-encompassing log. The world is filled to the brim with airships of all shapes and sizes, and exploring each one is an adventure in itself. With flight advancing so quickly, we find ourselves discovering new horizons every day. And while the technology has certainly advanced much further than what I've covered today, I hope you'll continue to find magic in one of the greatest marvels ever achieved by normal, everyday creatures who dared to dream. Thanks everyone for tuning in to join me on this fascinating journey. I know I had originally planned to cover the Sixth Umbral Calamity, but real life got the best of me this month, so I would really rather wait to give it the attention it deserves. That being said, I'd like to give a special shout out to Lazaria02, who was the first person to correctly guess I was going to attempt a Sixth Calamity video. Thank you for your efforts. Secondly, I'd like to invite you all to my Discord server if you haven't joined already. And if you're looking to support the channel beyond likes, shares, and subscribes, please check out my Patreon link below. There you can donate as little as $1 and be featured in the credits. Or you can donate all the way up to $15 where you could be featured in a video. And lastly, I hope you packed your snow boots because Starlight is just around the corner, and the next video definitely is not Costa del Sol. While the short I'm covering for the holiday will be Starlight itself, the main video will not. So, get your thinking caps on. This has been the Eorzean Historian, signing off until our next great adventure. Ciao for now!